Hi, I'm Dr. Charlene Walters, author, business and branding mentor, trainer, as well as your host for Launch, a business talk show for anyone who wants to launch their business, their career, or their life. Hi everyone, welcome to Launch. It's Charlene Walters, your host, and today we have an awesome guest, Erin King. She is a fellow McGraw-Hill author. She is a speaker. She is a digital persuasion and communication elevation expert and a speaker, and I'm so glad she's here today. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thanks for having me, Charlene. Great to see you on Zoom.
I know, it's nice to finally meet in person on Zoom as we were just talking about. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your awesome background.
Oh gosh. I am a three-time entrepreneur. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a sucker for working harder than a lot of people just to not have a job, which is
Yes,
totally insane, which you understand.
I totally understand.
Yeah, and I'm two-thirds East Coast, one-third West Coast,
Good.
and we live here in Southern California with my very cute husband and my even cuter, super cute little Cavapoo puppy named Betty White.
Nice.
And love of my life. And yeah, and I'm on my second book, You're Kind of a Big Deal with McGraw-Hill, and just came from the National Speaker Association conference in Vegas for the last 5 days, which, as you know, is 3 days too long in Vegas.
It was fun, I'm sure.
It was a lot of fun. It was great just to be with people and hug people and shake hands. And it's almost like we're waking up from this year and a half in a weird matrix world or something. And now we're back to normal. Like it never happened, which is crazy.
It
Um,
is.
so I have a course called the Social Media Spa. We have 10,000 students. We help people level up how they show up online, offline, and all the time. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That is a great story, and it's cool that you live in Southern California. I used to live there, and I would die to go back. I mean, I'd be there in a heartbeat if I could. Maybe at some point in my life I will return.
Me too. The
I
weather's fabulous today. We're going out in the water. We're gonna take the boat out and have a goof off, play hooky Friday because we've been working around the clock the last couple months since the book launched. So we're just gonna take a little afternoon, Charlene. Take a little time out, you know?
I know how that goes. I just came back from the beach, and I tell you, I needed that break. It's been so super busy. You talk a lot about having some epic failures in business. Can you tell us more about them and what you learned from those failures?
Well, you know from the journey you've been on as well, that when you look to create a story that can help women and a few good men to unlock their confidence, their courage. In my case, my book's about audacity. When you look around at all the women that inspire you, I
Yeah.
interviewed the grittiest gals that I know for my book. And the women that I've looked up to, that I've imitated, that I've tried to learn from, that have helped me to get to the point where I am right now, they all really just have this one thing in common. And that's that they just kept getting back up even after the most epic of failures. And
Absolutely.
so that's what we have in common, right? Is that we just our failure wounds, they heal into our success scars.
Yes.
And for my journey, my first company I started when I was 25 years old, Jump Digital Media, building websites. And within 12 months, I had no idea what I was doing. I had to shut the whole thing down. I had $70,000 on my personal credit card in debt because
Oh
I
no.
was getting I was getting cash advances to pay payroll for my employees that had children because I mismanaged our money. So I went back to the corporate world, dug out of my debt, got more experience, ran digital strategy for a Fortune 100. And when I got the itch again, I raised capital, seven figures of capital from investors here in Newport Beach. It was a
Awesome.
massive boardroom table. You could see the Pacific Ocean in the background. It was very beautiful, glamorous. And I was pitching a tampon delivery service to
I
a
remember
bunch of
reading about that.
Oh my God. It was like the scariest, like sweating through your Spanx. I'm holding up tampons. I'm talking about blood and cramps and absorbencies and all these alpha male Newport Beach guys are like going to throw up. They look so nauseous. But they ended up investing in the organization and we
Awesome.
ended up getting 25,000 women to subscribe. We were featured in Forbes, but ultimately we had a bunch of people pop up that were imitating us as well. About five different copycat competitors popped up. and none of us could make the margins work. It just turns out that most women are responsible adults. They get them at the grocery store. Not that big of a deal. So within 18 months after, no pun, but all the blood, sweat, and tears of the branding and the marketing and the PR and the sales and the website and the team and the FDA regulations and all the things, had to shut it down again, like epic failure. I had to go in that same boardroom 18 months later where I was so victorious and just eat a poo sandwich. And it was awful. I mean, we barely broke even, sold the URL, which luckily it was a 3-letter URL. So it was really valuable. So luckily that could kind of even things out, but it was not a home run at all for anyone. And what was crazy was like in that epic failure where you're in the shower and you're crying and you're losing your hair and you're just, what am I doing with my life? What is wrong with me? I discovered that even though PMS.com, the company, was an epic failure, PMS.com, the social media community, was actually a big success. We had, at the time, it was the internet's largest collection of women coming together and talking about this kind of taboo topic. And so you sort of find what you're actually supposed to do in the midst of everything on fire and burning down. So if someone's listening to this and you're like, at a major failure moment and you're like, what is wrong with me? I don't have what it takes. I'm not enough. When do I quit? Like, at what point are you just being an idiot? At what point are you pushing through? That's a hard call to make, right? And I would just say that, look at the failure, look at what you are struggling with, and can you find that gem, that superpower? For me, it was building community. We parlayed that into my third and finally fiscally successful venture, which was Socialite Agency.
Yay.
Yeah. So for the last 10 years, we've run social media for everyone from the Oscars in Hollywood to the United States Navy. That parlayed into writing my books and speaking and talking to you. But it really was a really painful, tough decade to get there. And I just think as entrepreneurs and as women, we really underestimate just how dang hard it is to get to the other side and just how much failure hurts and is painful and is expensive. And the question is it really worth it for you? Is it your definition of success that you're chasing? Or is it maybe an idea that you thought was success, but now that you're in the weeds and you're rolling up your sleeves, maybe it's not what you dreamed of. Maybe it's not worth it. And I think even after the pandemic, we're all redefining what success looks like.
Absolutely.
And it's okay if it's not what it used to be. So a lot of the stories in the book talk through specific failures and then the actual strategies that helped me and the gals that I feature in the book to overcome the obstacle and ultimately level up.
Amazing. You've been through a lot and now you have a thriving business. And I'd love to hear more about it, particularly about your clients. You've had the Oscars, the US Navy, you've had Disney, so many great clients. How did you manage to grow it so well and attract such big names?
Well, for my company, for Socialite, we were working in the social media space, which was very saturated then, is even more saturated now. Like anyone with a Facebook profile can be a social media expert. And so there were two things that worked really well to scale Socialite quickly. So if you're running a business and you're like, how do I get out of these playing with my small local clients? How do I maybe scale up from being a solopreneur to an entrepreneur? There's two things that really helped us scale quickly and effectively. The first was this. We looked at what we were doing, social media, and we realized we were working in a very commoditized marketplace. So what I looked at what we were doing, I'm like, what are we doing that no one else really does? How can we really niche down? And people always talk about niching down, find your audience, find your customer. It's so cliche, but most people do not have the discipline to actually do it, to actually say no to other types of speaking gigs or no to other types of clients because we're so afraid, because we're for everyone, right? But if you're everything to everyone, you really are nothing to no one.
True.
You can run your business that way. It will work, but you'll probably stay in a lifestyle business versus an actual enterprise. So when we niched down and we said, we're going to be the social media agency for live events specifically. We are the only ones in the world who just do live events. The minute we did that and we started saying no to personal branding, no to reputation management, no to all these other things people were asking us for, it was so painful, Charlene, because
yes,
no to money.
Right.
No to money. And I remember thinking to myself, am I an idiot? I read this book called the Startup Owner's Manual, and it's a very non-sexy textbook that changed the way I think about business.
I think I've seen that. I can't remember who it's by though.
I can't either. It's two guys and it's not entertaining. It's not a beach read for the beach, right? But it is the best business book I've ever read. And it was all about finding that niche and just like leaning so hard into it. So once we decided to be that, we did one or two events, like just kind of boring convention, trade show, association things. But then immediately we became the referable aid. Oh, these guys are the live event social media agency. Well, that led to the second thing was our secret, which was that gateway gig. Because a lot of us, whether we're speakers or authors or small business owners, you only need that one marquee client. You
Right.
only need that one 20,000 person stage, right?
Right.
Or just that one gig where it has that vanity brand, that marquee name.
That wow factor, right?
And then everyone's like, oh, well, they did that gig. For us, it was the Oscars.
Awesome.
In my first book, Digital Persuasion, I write about exactly how I landed them, which was writing this pub message, personal useful brief, this method I teach for sales. Anyway, so we get the Oscars and we had no idea what we were doing. We had like the smallest, scrappiest team. We worked our butts off. We rocked it. Well, once we did the Oscars, that one gateway gig, that led to Fashion Week, that led to Nelson Mandela's Legacy of Hope and all these big glamorous gigs. But my point is if you're struggling to get to that next level, you only need that one. And so decide who it is. Because I had them written down at the top of my list. I mean, I bought the dress for the Oscars. I wrote the press release for the Oscars. All of these things were totally insane because we did not have them as a client.
Right.
I manifested the shit out of them. I was just like, I will do this. And it worked. I mean, it literally, you have to be a little crazy, but it worked. And it triggered everything else. And so whether you're a speaker, author, entrepreneur, like who is that gateway gig for you? Who is that marquee client that could ignite and expedite the scale of your growth? Because those are the two things. Can you niche down and find out who you're really for? Like even for my speaking business, Charlene, I mean, you know this, the minute you decide your audience, like for me, it's a lot of direct sales, MLM. The minute you do one or two big ones, now they all want you. So there's just this little two tips is niching down and then just like identifying and chasing down your gateway gig. And those two things together will pour gasoline on your momentum and just ignite tremendous growth that you can only dream of.
That is such really great advice. And and I probably have an Oscars dress in my closet somewhere that I can make do.
Yes, I love it.
You talk a lot about excelling in business, but still staying true to yourself. How can entrepreneurs out there do that?
Well, read my book first because it's all about audacity, and audacity is what I've used. And it's funny because audacity is kind of a controversial word, and that's
Right.
intentional. People are like, someone will say, oh, and they have the audacity to say this thing or do that. But the definition is that it's acting and daring boldly, which is very sexy. We all want to be Brene Brown and dare greatly and all this.
Yes.
But the unsexy fine print, the non-sexy fine print is it's daring boldly and greatly, even if it might shock people, which we're like, clenched teeth emoji, or maybe even offend people. And that's where we kind of say a hard no. We put the brakes on, especially as women, especially in a cancel culture we live in today. Like no one wants to offend anyone because it's so scary and you can be done in one tweet. So, but audacity is really what I believe has helped me to stay true to myself and continue to build a business, because there's a certain amount of, it's not caring what anyone thinks about you, because that's just ridiculous. You're like a sociopath or a narcissist if you don't care what anyone thinks about you. It's healthy to want the people that you love in your life to love your thing. I mean, you want the people that in your life to love your book. You want your clients to love your talk, of course. And what being audacious is about, and I call it unlocking your big deal energy that you have inside you. You already have it, but it's whether you unleash it or not. And it's about when you're at that crossroads, when you're at that high stakes moment where the stakes are the highest and you do know your GPS is screaming at you to bang that left-hand turn. When you are at those moments, your big deal energy, your audacity is you care more what you think about your choices. You care more what you think about your actions. And that sounds so simple, but it's not easy. When, for example, I went through a period of grief about 5 months ago that I'm still kind of working through. And it's a whole thing with, I lost my puppy and it was this whole awful experience. And my point is, I was being, I'm a motivational speaker. So it was really scary to show up on my podcast and on my content to my tribe and be like, I'm not okay. And that's a
Right.
really bold move, because what happens when you do show up as you, 98% of my tribe was like, tell me more. I'm in that space too. You unpack the perfection Instagram bullshit, and people are like, oh my God, they're thirsty for more authenticity and more, like, to use your word, true to yourself.
Yes.
And there was 2% of my audience, including some clients, who were kind of like, it's kind of depressing to follow a bummed out motivational speaker. I mean, I had two clients that I'm hired to do their conventions in the fall. And they reached out and they were like, we're really sorry you're going through this. Like, and they really were so genuinely kind about it. And they were like, but you're gonna be like fun and happy again by like our conference, right? Because like we don't want you like crying on stage. It's like a motivation. And it was like, I kind of said to them, hey, I might not be your cup of tea right now. I'm doing my best, but I'm human and I'm real. And if I'm not, I have names of powerhouse women that I am happy to connect you with. And so that's what we're scared of. We're scared of showing up real because of those types of comments and feedback. And your audacity means you're going to dare greatly and do you, even if people maybe don't love it. And
Right.
it's like my grandmother from Ireland, she always says, she's like, it's better to be someone's shot of whiskey than everyone's cup of tea.
It sure is. And you can't please everybody. You absolutely can't. There's no way.
And yet, as women, I think we still try to do this. I
Yeah.
know I battle it every day, and I am definitely, I index pretty high on the zero fucks given scale, part of my language, the zero F's given. But like, I still, to this day, I'm even speaking at the National Speaker Association. I got off stage and I hope I served. I hope everyone liked it. I hope I, but you know, my friend Tamsin Webster, who would be great on your podcast, she wrote this great book called The Red Thread Method, and she's a genius in Boston. I love her. We're a member of a mastermind group called the She Noters. And she has this great phrase. She's like, when you get on stage and really in life, the
Yes.
minute that you seek their approval, you lose their respect.
Yes. You have to own yourself first.
But we know this, but it's so hard to do.
It is really, really hard to do. I mean, I think we battle a lot with that as women, trying to be perfect, trying to please everyone, as you said. And something else that we worry about is jealousy too. But you talk a lot about how jealousy can be a good thing. How is it a good thing?
Well, the chapter is called Your Jealousy is Your Genius. And I share this story. I don't know if you read this part, but I share a story about years ago being at a conference in Walt Disney, and it was a B2B marketing conference, primarily dudes in dark suits. And it was very, clicks and conversions and all great, super important, but pretty serious conference. So this woman walks out on stage and she is wearing a skin tight black leather, essentially like a cat suit with over the knee boots. And she had this swingy blonde bob and a clipped British accent. And she began to talk about her mission on this website called Make Love Not Porn,
Hmm.
and all about how the importance of sexual education at a young age promotes healthier relationships as adults, because the internet has changed how we learn about the taboo topic of sex. And so she believes we need to get more proactive about distinguishing between this is fantasy, this is not real love. And so doing that can help women and men have closer, more intimate relationships, which make all of us happier, healthier. So it's this great mission. But she's talking essentially about porn on stage to a bunch of guys. And she was so audacious. And at the end of this conversation, or her talk, she got this roaring standing ovation because she was so real. I mean, she was the realest girl I ever saw. I was calling her Lady Catwoman in my mind, but her real name is Cindy Gallup. And she's just a dynamo. I remember sitting in the audience and I was flooded with jealousy. I was just like so jealous that she could do that and be that and show up like that. And I remember feeling immediately guilty, because anytime you feel jealous, you immediately are like, I'm for girls supporting girls. I'm for women supporting
Right.
women. I'm girl power. Like, how dare you? Like, you like kind of slap yourself on the wrist a little bit because you're not allowed to feel like that. Well, fast forward 5 years later, and I'm at a conference in Vegas with my socialite agency. We're doing an event. One of the speakers ends up canceling last minute about social media. The meeting planner's bawling, crying. She's freaking out. And she's like, can you get up on stage and just talk about what you guys do for us? How you run social for these large conventions?
Right.
So I went into the bathroom, totally freaked out. Amy Cuddy power posed. I kind of blacked out when I got up there, but I talked about what we do. Well, after, all these people are like, will you come speak at our conference? What's your fee? And I couldn't believe it was a job. So I remember before I went on stage to do this, I remembered how jealous I was of Cindy Gallup 5 years later. And I remember like, I'm going to channel my inner Cindy. I'm going to do what she did. Now, when I finished my talk, they rose to their feet and left. There was no standing ovation because it was not strong.
Oh, I'm sure it was good.
So, well, I was so jealous of what she did because deep down, that's what I really wanted to do. And now, 10 years later, now I do what she does full time. And so my jealousy, what I realized looking back, was actually an indicator that I should have paid better attention to, that it was actually an indicator of my deepest desire of what I actually really wanted for my life. And so my challenge in the book is to not always immediately discount your jealousy as all bad all the time. Right. And the book goes on to distinguish between the difference between healthy comparison and unhealthy comparison and healthy competition. So you can see someone like Charlene and, your posts and your content, and there's a healthy level of competition where I could be like, go Charlene. And now I'm ready to kick it up a notch. So that's a healthy version.
Right.
Unhealthy comparison where you see Charlene and then you think to yourself, oh, I hate my outfit. I hate my body. I hate my face. I hate my book. Like, that's unhealthy. Then that's the line. Like, does it motivate you to level up in a healthy way, or does it have you negative self-talking? And I think that's the distinguishing factor between when you do inevitably compare, which we all do on social media. It's engineered for this. And so just paying attention to those pangs of the green monster is what I advocate, and reframing them a little bit. Is this an indicator of what I actually might want to be doing with my life or chasing down? Or do I need to be careful and more intentional about how I'm spending time either following this person, or is my self-talk need a little tweak to make sure that I'm not allowing this to steal my joy? And so that's the awareness that chapter promotes.
I think that's important, and definitely we can use that jealousy as a motivator. I know it does for me when I see things happening. I'm like, I need to do that, or I need to do that. And we're good people. We're happy for other people, but at the same time, we also want certain things for ourselves. So it's totally understandable. You talked a little bit about your book, Erin, but we want to hear more. Tell us more about it.
Well, it's called You're Kind of a Big Deal, because I believe that we all are kind of a big deal, and we all have that big deal energy inside of us. And I think so often, especially as women, when we're at a tough moment to start the venture, to begin the new, to stop the thing, to leave the relationship, to leave the job, to maybe say this is not working professionally or personally, I think that a lot of times we look to everyone else and think that they have it figured out or they have something we don't. And I don't believe that. And so this book is about unlocking your big deal energy, trusting yourself. Intuition is individual. It's not collective. And so when we tend to look around us for the answers, look around us for the decision, it's prohibiting us from tapping into our superpower. And that big deal energy is something that I think the women and men that achieve great, big, juicy, wonderful things, they do harness it and they do listen to it. And I think the ones of us that get stuck sometimes are the ones that don't pay attention to that inner GPS lady. So I talk a lot about how to reframe reactions, because a lot of times doing something big and everyone starts off maybe saying go girl, but then over time it turns to no girl. And so it's not that we need to like help getting started. It's that we need help sustaining our momentum and trusting that we do know. And a big part of that in this book is reframing those red lights or that negative feedback or that pushback. Maybe they aren't red lights. Maybe they're actually green light indicators that we're on the right track. And I talk a lot about the fact that people's reactions to us are just reflections of them.
Yes. Important to remember.
Bold, I don't like what you're doing is probably because what you're doing is forcing them to rethink a narrative they've told themselves to keep themselves comfortable. It's made them look in the mirror and see things that they don't want to see. And so instead of feeling like it's, this gospel that we should rethink what we thought we knew, perhaps maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the best indicator that you actually are doing something that is big deal.
That is really important to learn about, and I hope everyone will check out your book because I've read it and it's awesome. And I have probably my most important question of the interview for you. Am I a big deal? Are you a big deal?
Charlene, of course. You are such a big deal. And I think the reason you're a big deal is because you are living your life in alignment with what brings you joy. It's obvious from your content, it's obvious from your book, it's obvious from the energy coming through the screen that you don't just have this magical quality that no one else has, but you put in the work to trust yourself and follow yourself. And to me, that is definition of a big deal. It's
I didn't mean you needed to give me a whole big explanation. I was just being funny. But you are a big deal too, definitely. So I like to also play a little fun game on my show. It's called If You Tell Me Yours, I'll Tell You Mine. So I'm going to ask you a few questions, okay?
Okay.
On an airplane, do you prefer the window seat or the aisle?
Window.
Me too. I like to take a nap there all the time, whenever I can. I can sleep like a baby on a plane. I don't know about you.
Love it. Same. I can fall asleep on demand anywhere, anytime. It's a talent.
That's a good quality to have, for sure. If you could, would you prefer to be, for a day, a fish or a bird?
A fish.
A fish? Really? Why?
Because I love the water. I live by the beach. I'm a surfer. I love scuba diving. And I always wish I could. I mean, this is so cliche, but I would totally want to be a mermaid. I mean, let's be honest.
That would be fun.
What about you?
That's interesting. You know, for me, I would rather be a bird, I think, because I feel like I could look around at everything and see what's happening. I feel like if I was a fish, I might get swallowed by another fish. But hopefully not. I like your idea of the mermaid.
Yeah.
If you could go to outer space as a tourist, would you?
Yes. What about you?
It would be so much fun, wouldn't it? Did you see all those videos that just came out? Oh.
We just had a dinner party last night and we were all talking about this exact same question. And it was interesting because the entrepreneurs in the room all said yes, and everyone that had a proper corporate job said no.
Oh, really? Why? What were their reasons for not wanting to go?
They said that they were afraid that something would happen like in the movies where something would get disconnected or they'd be floating out endlessly in space or there'd be an explosion or they couldn't get back to their family that they loved or
Aww.
they had very grounding, responsible answers. And it was interesting because everyone that had a proper corporate job said no and everyone that was an entrepreneur said yes. So I think it was a risk tolerance measurement type of thing, which I just kind of made that deduction. But there was actually one person who had a job, but they have a very entrepreneurial mindset in their job. So I think that there's that too. So it just depends on how your mindset more than your job, obviously.
Interesting. We fell in line just where we were meant to, going to space. Why not, right?
Yes, I love it.
Next question. Did your parents give you the right or wrong name?
I don't know if there's a right or wrong name, but I do. My name's Erin, which means Ireland in Gaelic, and I am an Irish citizen. So I Irish step dance as a kid.
Oh, fun.
I do like myself a Guinness here and there. So yeah, probably.
That does sound like a good name.
How about you?
I used to not like my name when I was young because it was unusual, but now that I've sort of grown into it as I've gotten over, so I think it's the right name for me, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm used to it by now. All right, last question of the game. Have you ever eaten an entire pizza by yourself? Be honest here.
No, but
you haven't?
Pizza's not my downfall though.
Okay.
If you had asked me like, have you ever eaten a whole cheese plate or a whole bread basket? The answer is absolutely yes. But pizza's not my jam. But I could definitely do like a bread basket or like a charcuterie plate. No problem.
You know, don't you wish we could eat bread without any consequences? I mean, it would be so nice just to live on some nice, warm, delicious bread. I have, but in the past, recently, I'm trying to be better about that kind of thing. When I was young, I could throw down a pizza, not in one sitting, but I could do it over a couple days. Okay, so we're coming to the end of the show here, Erin, and it's been so much fun. Thank you so much for all of your insight. Where can the audience find out more about you?
I'm an Instagram gal. I hate Instagram, but I'm on it all the time.
Awesome.
At mrs.erin.king or my website, erinking.com.
So everyone, be sure to check Erin out in her new book. And until then, we will see you next time on Launch.